The cold wind howled across the surface of Kepler 442b as Taimin pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders. The mining station sat like a metal island in an ocean of red dust and jagged rocks. 3 moons hung in the dark sky above, casting strange shadows that danced across the ground. Taimin had been working the night shift for 6 months now. The pay was good, but the loneliness ate at him sometimes. Only 12 people lived on this distant rock, and most days he barely saw half of them. His job was simple enough: check the atmospheric processors, make sure the air recyclers were running clean, and keep the station breathing. Tonight felt different, though. Something in the air made his skin crawl. Maybe it was just the storm that had been building all day, or maybe it was the strange readings he had noticed on his instruments. Either way, he decided to do an extra walk around the station's outer perimeter. The waste disposal area sat about 200 meters from the main buildings. It was not a pretty sight, just a collection of metal containers and processing units that broke down their garbage and recycled what could be saved. Most workers avoided the area unless they had to be there. Taimin was checking the seals on one of the larger containers when he heard it. A sound like air escaping from a broken pipe, but softer. More like breathing, but wrong somehow. Too slow, too labored. He turned toward the sound and froze. Something was lying in the shadow between 2 waste containers. At first, Taimin thought it might be debris blown in by the wind. Then it moved, just slightly, and he realized he was looking at a living creature. The thing was huge, nearly as tall as Taimin even while lying down. It looked like a cat, but not like any cat he had ever seen. Its fur seemed to shift colors in the strange moonlight, going from gray to silver to almost black. 3 long tails curved around its body, and its limbs were longer and more graceful than any earth animal. Taimin took a step closer, and the creature's head lifted. 2 large eyes opened and stared at him. They were the color of deep ocean water, and they held an intelligence that made Taimin's breath catch in his throat. This was not just an animal, this was someone. The being tried to push itself up but collapsed back down with a sound that might have been a whimper. Its breathing was harsh and uneven. Even from several feet away, Taimin could see that it was starving. Its ribs showed clearly. Through its fur and its eyes had that hollow look of someone who had not eaten in far too long. Taimin raised his hands slowly, showing his empty palms. "Hey there," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's ears flattened against its head and it hissed. The sound was like steam escaping from a pressure valve, sharp and warning. But there was no real strength behind it. Taimin activated his universal translator and spoke again. "Can you understand me?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the device crackled to life, and a voice emerged. The words were broken and hard to understand, but they were clearly words. Go. Away. Human. The translator struggled with the alien language, but the meaning was clear enough. Taimin felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold wind. "You're hurt," he said. "Let me help you." "No. Help." The creature's voice came in gasps through the translator. "Come here. To die. Alone." "Die?" Taimin stepped closer despite the warning hiss. "Why do you want to die?" The being's fur rippled with color changes that the translator could not interpret. When it spoke again, its voice carried a weight of sadness that made Taimin's chest tight. "Lost everything, no purpose, no connections. Better to fade away." "What's your name?" Taimin asked. Another long pause. "Veltar." "I'm Taimin." He sat down on a nearby crate, keeping his distance but showing he was not leaving. "Where are you from, Veltar?" "Far." Veltar's eyes closed for a moment. "Very far. Andromeda sector. World is gone now. Gone. All gone. Family, friends, everyone. I am last one." Taimin felt something twist in his stomach. He had heard about worlds being destroyed in the outer sectors, pirates, natural disasters, cosmic phenomena that could wipe out entire civilizations, but he had never met a survivor before. "So you came here to end it properly." Veltar's fur had settled into a dull gray color that somehow looked wrong, like a flower that had lost all its petals. My people believe, when all connections are broken, when purpose is lost, better to return to the void. But you're still alive, not living, just existing, waiting for the courage to finish it. Taemin sat in silence for several minutes, watching Veltar breathe. Each breath seemed to take tremendous effort. The alien had clearly been starving himself, probably for weeks or months. Have you eaten anything since you got here? Do not need food for what comes next. When did you last eat anything at all? Veltar did not answer, but his silence was answer enough. Taemin stood up slowly. I'll be right back. No. Veltar's eyes snapped open. Do not interfere. This is how it must be. Maybe, Taemin said, but I can't just walk away and leave you like this. You do not understand. Your species, too young, not know about proper endings. Maybe you're right, but I know about being alone and I know about losing people you care about. Taemin backed away slowly. I'll be back. He heard Veltar calling after him, but the words were too broken for the translator to make sense of them. Taemin hurried, back toward the main station, his mind racing. In the station's small medical bay, he found the emergency nutrient supplies. Most of it was designed for human biology, but there were a few universal supplements that worked for most known species. He also grabbed a container of clean water and a basic medical scanner. The walk back to the waste area felt much longer than before. Part of him wondered if Veltar would still be there, or if the alien had found the strength to crawl away and hide somewhere else. But Veltar was still there, lying in exactly the same position. His breathing seemed even more labored than before. I told you, do not interfere, and I told you I'd be back. Taemin set the water container down within Veltar's reach, but not so close as to seem threatening. You don't have to drink it, but it's there if you want it. Veltar stared at the water for a long time. Finally, his voice came through the translator, barely a whisper. Why? Because everyone deserves to have someone care about them, even if it's just a stranger. You do not know me. No, but I know what it feels like to be alone. And I know that dying alone is the worst kind of alone there is. Veltar's fur rippled with colors that Taemin could not read. The alien said nothing more, but his eyes stayed fixed on the water container. Taemin settled back onto his crate. He had the rest of the night shift to finish, but his rounds could wait a little longer. For now, he was exactly where he needed to be. The three moons continued their slow dance across the sky, and the wind carried the scent of distant storms. But in the shadow between the waste containers, two very different beings sat in silence, and for the first time in months neither of them was completely alone. Taemin could not sleep when his shift ended. He lay in his small bunk, staring at the metal ceiling and thinking about the alien he had left outside. Veltar. The name felt strange in his mind, but it was a real name for a real person who was dying alone in the cold. After 2 hours of tossing and turning, Taemin gave up on sleep. He made his way to the station's computer terminal and began searching through the galactic database. Information about the Andromeda sector was limited, but he found enough to make his heart heavy. The Felonians were an old race, much older than humans. They had been exploring space when Earth was still covered in ice. Their culture was built around something called soul threads, deep connections between family members and close friends that lasted their entire lives. The database said that Felonians who lost all their soul threads often chose ritual death, rather than live alone. Taemin read about their biology too. They needed different nutrients than humans, but there were several foods in the station's supplies that would not harm them. More importantly, he learned that the color changes in their fur showed their emotions. Gray meant despair and approaching death. When his next shift started, Taemin filled a small bag with appropriate food supplies and made his way back to the waste disposal area. He half expected to find Veltar gone, but the alien was still there. The water container was empty. You drank it, Taman said, sitting down on his crate again. Was thirsty. Veltar did not look at him. Does not change anything. Maybe not. But it's something. Taman pulled out a small package of processed protein that the database said was safe for Felonian biology. This won't hurt you. Your body can process it. I do not want food, I know, but I'm going to leave it here anyway. They sat in silence for a while. Taman noticed that Veltar's breathing seemed a little easier than the night before. The alien was still terribly thin, but he was not getting worse as quickly. Tell me about your family, Taman said eventually. Veltar's fur rippled with dark colors. Why torture myself? Because forgetting them would be worse than remembering them. For a long time, Veltar said nothing. Then, in a voice so quiet, the translator barely caught it, he began to speak. Had a mate, Shiara, fur like starlight, voice like wind through crystal caves, 2 younglings, Kevtar and little Militar. His fur shifted to deep blue, a color Taman had not seen before. Militar loved to climb, always finding new places to explore. What happened to them? Void surge. The words came out like a curse. Cosmic phenomenon that eats worlds. Came without warning. I was away, on trading mission to nearby system. Veltar's voice broke. Came home to nothing. World was gone. Everyone gone. Taman felt tears prick his eyes. I'm sorry. Sorry does not bring them back. No, it doesn't. But it means you're not carrying that pain alone. You do not understand. Veltar finally looked at him, those deep blue eyes full of anguish. Felonians are not meant to be alone. We form soul threads when we are young. These connections, they are like roots of a tree. Cut all the roots and the tree dies. Humans are different, Taman said. We form new connections all the time, sometimes with people we've known for years, sometimes with strangers we just met. That is not how my people work. Maybe not. But you're not with your people now. You're here, with me. Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. One human cannot replace an entire world. No, but one human can sit with you so you don't have to be alone. The next few days fell into a pattern. Taman would finish his regular duties, then spend time with Veltar. He brought food and water, and slowly, very slowly, Veltar began accepting small amounts of both. Not enough to get healthy, but enough to stop dying quite so quickly. Taman talked about his life on Earth, his family, his dreams of seeing other worlds. He told Veltar about his grandmother, Haywan, who had lost everything in a war but spent the rest of her life teaching children. She used to say that when life breaks, you have 2 choices, Taman said one evening as they watched the 3 moons rise. You can stay broken, or you can use the pieces to build something new. Easy words for someone who has not lost everything. She had lost everything. Her parents, her brothers, her home. Everything except her life. And that was enough? She made it enough. She couldn't get back what she had lost, but she could give something to people who needed it. Veltar was quiet for a long time. Your grandmother, she was wise. She was stubborn, just like me. For the first time since they had met, Taman saw a flicker of something other than gray in Veltar's fur. Just for a moment, there was a hint of pale blue. On the 6th day, everything changed. Commander Bora was waiting for Taman when he came off shift. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. We need to talk, she said. They went to her office and she closed the door behind them. I know what you've been doing, she said without preamble. Jinwoo saw you carrying food to the waste area. So Young picked up alien language patterns on her communication sweeps. Taman's heart sank. Commander, I can explain. You're in violation of the Galactic Non-Interference Directive. Article 12 clearly states that humans are not to interfere with the cultural practices of other species. He's dying, by his own choice according to his own cultural beliefs. That's his right. It's also my right to show compassion to someone who's suffering. Bora leaned back in her chair. Taemin, I understand your impulses, but we can't just impose our values on every alien we meet. What if his people consider your interference to be a grave insult? What if they don't? That's not your decision to make. Taemin stood up. So I'm supposed to just let him die alone? If that's what his culture demands, then yes. That's not right. It's the law. Bora's voice softened slightly. Look, I know this is hard, but you have to stop contact with the alien. That's an order. Taemin nodded slowly. Yes, Commander. But as he left her office, his fingers were crossed behind his back. That night, he made his way to the waste area as usual. Veltar was sitting up, the first time Taemin had seen him in anything other than a prone position. You are late tonight, Veltar said. Had to be careful. My commander knows about our meetings. Ah. Veltar's fur shifted to darker shades. And now you will stop coming. No, Taemin said firmly. I'll just have to be more sneaky about it, for the first time Veltar's fur showed a clear flash of bright blue, the color of surprise. Why would you risk trouble for me? Taemin sat down and pulled out the evening's food ration. Because that's what friends do. Friends? Yeah, friends. People who care about each other. Veltar stared at him for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, I had forgotten that word existed. As the moons continued their nightly dance, across the alien sky, Taemin realized that something had changed. Veltar was still gray, still dying, still lost. But for the first time, he was also listening. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start building something new from the broken pieces. 2 weeks passed since Commander Bora had ordered Taemin to stop visiting Veltar. During the day, Taemin performed his duties like a model employee. But every night he found ways to slip away to the waste disposal area without being seen. Veltar was changing slowly but surely. He was eating more now and his ribs no longer showed so clearly through his fur. More importantly, his eyes had lost some of that hollow look. He still spent most of his time lying down, but he would sit up when Taemin arrived and actually seemed to look forward to their conversations. Tell me another story about your grandmother, Veltar said one evening. His universal translator had gotten better at handling his speech as he grew stronger. Which one do you want to hear? The one about the school? Taemin smiled. This had become Veltar's favorite story. Grandmother Haiwan was 25 when the war ended. She had nothing left. No family, no home, no money. She was living in a refugee camp with hundreds of other people who had lost everything. Veltar's fur showed faint traces of blue as he listened. Taemin had learned that blue meant interest or curiosity. The camp was not a good place for children. Too crowded, too noisy, too many sad people. But there were dozens of kids there with nowhere else to go. Grandmother Haiwan started gathering them together every morning to teach them reading and writing. Even though she had no supplies, she used sticks to write in the dirt. She tore pages from old books to make paper. She told them stories to help them learn new words. Taemin's voice grew warm with pride. Other adults said she was wasting her time, said those children would never amount to anything, but she kept teaching them, every single day for 2 years until the camp closed and everyone was relocated. Do you know what happened to those children? Veltar's fur brightened with more blue. Tell me. 30 years later, Grandmother Haiwan got a letter. It was from one of those refugee children now grown up and working as a doctor. He had tracked her down to thank her. He said that her lessons had given him hope when he had none. One student. But that's not the end of the story. That doctor had taught his own children the same lessons Grandmother Haiwan had taught him, and they grew up to become teachers and engineers and artists. And they taught their children too. Veltar was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. So her teaching spread like ripples in water. Exactly. One person who refused to give up affected hundreds of people across generations. Your grandmother sounds remarkable. She was just stubborn. She saw something that needed doing and did it, even when everyone said it was pointless. Veltar's fur shifted to a pale green color that Taymin had never seen before. It was beautiful, like new leaves in spring. "What does green mean?" Taymin asked. "Hope," Veltar said quietly. "Very small hope, but hope." Their conversations were interrupted 3 days later by alarms blaring throughout the station. Taymin rushed back from the waste area to find chaos in the main building. Red warning lights flashed everywhere, and his fellow workers were running between control panels with worried expressions. "What's happening?" he asked Jinwoo, the station's botanist. "Atmospheric processor number 3 is failing," Jinwoo replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "The contamination readings are off the charts." Commander Bora's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have a code yellow contamination event." Taymin raced to his control station and began pulling up diagnostics. What he saw made his blood run cold. The contamination was not any ordinary malfunction. The energy readings showed patterns he had never seen before, chaotic, destructive waves that seemed to eat through their filtration systems. "Commander," called So Young from her communications post, "I'm picking up some kind of exotic energy signature. It's not matching anything in our database." "Where is it coming from?" Bora demanded. "External source. Something near the station." Taymin's heart sank as understanding hit him like a physical blow. He knew exactly where that energy was coming from. After 2 hours of emergency repairs, the immediate crisis was under control, but barely. The contamination had been contained, but their atmospheric systems were running at dangerous levels. One more surge like that and the station would become uninhabitable. Taymin found Veltar exactly where he had left him, but the alien was no longer lying down. He was crouched in a position that looked almost like grief, his long tails wrapped around his body. His fur had gone completely black. "You know what's happening, don't you?" Taymin said. "Void surge energy." Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. "It followed me here. How is that possible?" "I do not know. But I recognize the signature. It is the same energy that destroyed my world." Veltar's fur rippled with waves of red, the color of shame and anguish. "I have brought death to another place. It's not your fault." "Yes, it is." Veltar stood up abruptly, moving with more energy than Taymin had seen from him in weeks. But it was the energy of panic, not recovery. "I should have died when I first arrived. Should have completed the ritual immediately. Now more people will suffer because of my selfishness." "Veltar, calm down. You do not understand. This confirms everything I believed. I bring only destruction. I am a curse upon any world I touch." Taymin grabbed Veltar's arm, feeling the alien's muscles trembling with agitation. "Listen to me. You didn't cause this. The energy would not be here if I had not come here. Maybe not. But you're here now and you understand this energy better than anyone else on the station." Veltar went very still. "What do you mean?" "You said you recognize the signature. That means your people encountered this before, right? They must have learned something about it, developed some kind of defense. We tried, but it was not enough to save our world. But you learned something. Even if it wasn't enough to stop it completely, you learned something." Veltar's black fur began to show traces of other colors, blue and green mixing with the darkness. There were theoretical countermeasures, energy dampening fields, resonance disruption techniques. But the technology was lost when your world was destroyed. But you remember the theories, don't you? Some of them. But what good does that do? I am not an engineer. Taymin smiled. No, but I am. And you're a walking library of information about void surge energy. You want to work together? I want to save my station and everyone on it. And right now you might be the only person in this entire star system who knows how to do that. Veltar looked at Taymin for a long moment. His fur was cycling through colors too quickly to interpret. Black and red and blue and green all swirling together like a storm. If we try this and fail, everyone dies. If we don't try, everyone dies anyway. The contamination will get worse. And if we succeed, then maybe you'll have found something worth living for. Veltar's fur gradually settled into a new pattern, still mostly gray but shot through with threads of silver and pale blue. It was not the vibrant colors of health and happiness, but it was not the dull gray of despair either. My people had a saying, Veltar said slowly. The darkest void can be lit by a single star. Is that a yes? That is a yes. As they began to discuss the technical possibilities, Taemin noticed something remarkable. For the first time since they had met, Veltar was not talking about dying. He was talking about tomorrow, about plans, about hope. It was the smallest possible beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless. And sometimes, Taemin thought, the smallest beginnings led to the most extraordinary endings. Working with Veltar was like putting together a puzzle where half the pieces were missing. The alien remembered fragments of his people's research, equations that made no sense to human science, energy patterns that defied conventional physics, and theoretical concepts that had no names in any human language. They met in secret every night in an unused storage room deep in the station. Taemin had smuggled in a portable computer terminal and several engineering manuals. Veltar would describe what he remembered, and Taemin would try to translate it into something their human technology could handle. The void surge feeds on stable energy patterns, Veltar explained during their third night of work. His fur showed steady amber colors now, the sign of focused concentration. It grows stronger when it encounters organized systems. Like our atmospheric processors? Exactly. The more complex the system, the more energy it can drain. Veltar's tails twitched as he thought. My people theorized that chaotic energy patterns might confuse it, make it unable to feed properly. Taemin frowned at his computer screen. So we need to make our systems more chaotic? Not chaotic. Unpredictable. Create energy patterns that shift too quickly for the void surge to lock onto. Taemin paused, his mind racing. That's actually brilliant. Like jamming a radio signal. Radio signal? Never mind. Human thing. But I think I understand what you mean. As the days passed, their partnership grew stronger. Veltar's knowledge combined with Taemin's practical skills began producing real results. They developed theoretical modifications that could turn their atmospheric processors into void surge jammers. But they were not working entirely alone anymore. Jinwoo discovered them on the 5th night, when he came looking for spare plant nutrients in the storage area. He stood in the doorway, staring at the alien and the human bent over computer screens covered in impossible equations. So this is where you disappear to every night, Jinwoo said quietly. Taemin's heart hammered in his chest. Jinwoo, I can explain. Explain what? That you're trying to save all our lives? Jinwoo stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. The contamination readings have been getting worse every day. Commander Bo-Ra thinks we might have to evacuate. We're working on a solution, Taemin said. Jinwoo looked at Veltar, who had gone very still. And you are? Veltar of the Felonian people, the alien said formally. I am the cause of your troubles. Are you also the solution? I hope to be. Jinwoo sat down on a storage crate. Tell me what you need. So Young joined them the next night, followed by 2 of the mining technicians. Word was spreading quietly through the station, not officially, but in the way that news travels when people are scared and looking for hope. The beauty of this approach, Taemin explained to the small group, is that we don't need to build new equipment. We can modify what we already have. Will it work? Asked Minho, one of the technicians. In theory, Veltar said, but theory and practice are different things. How different? So Young wanted to know. Veltar's fur flickered with uncertain colors. My people never had the chance to test their theories. The void surge destroyed our world before we could implement them. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. They were gambling everything on untested science from a dead civilization. So we might all die anyway, Jinwoo said. Yes, Veltar replied honestly. But if we do nothing, we definitely die, Minho added. Also yes. So Young leaned forward. I vote we try it. One by one, the others nodded agreement. When they looked at Taimin, he felt a weight of responsibility that made his shoulders ache. All right, he said. Let's build something impossible. The real challenge came when Commander Bora discovered what they were doing. She arrived at the storage room on the 7th night with 2 security officers. The small group of conspirators froze as she stepped inside, her face thunderous with anger. Stand down, all of you, she ordered. And you, she pointed at Veltar. Come with me. You're being confined until we can arrange transport off this station. Commander, wait, Taimin said, stepping between Bora and Veltar. We're close to a solution. A solution to a problem he caused in the first place. A solution that could save everyone. Based on the word of an alien who admits his own people failed to save themselves. The room was tense with conflict. Taimin could see his friends looking between him and the commander, unsure whose side to take. Then Veltar spoke up, his voice calm and clear. Commander Bora, you are correct to distrust me. I am indeed responsible for bringing this danger to your station. His fur had settled into solid blue, the color of truth-telling. But I am also the only person here who understands this enemy. Understanding and defeating are 2 different things. Yes, they are. But understanding is the first step toward defeating. Veltar stood up to his full height, which made him taller than anyone else in the room. I have spent weeks wanting to die because I believed I was useless, a burden, a curse upon any world I touched. Maybe you are. Maybe I am, Veltar agreed. But maybe I am also the person who can turn this curse into a blessing. Maybe the knowledge that failed to save my world can succeed in saving yours. Bora stared at him for a long moment. And if you're wrong? Then you will have lost nothing by trying. But if I am right, and you stop us now, you will have condemned everyone on this station to death. The commander looked around the room at the faces of her people. They were scared, but they were also hopeful. For the first time in days, they believed there might be a way out of their situation. How long do you need? She asked finally. 2 days to modify the atmospheric processors, Taimin said. Maybe 3. You have 48 hours if this doesn't work. If it doesn't work, we'll all be dead anyway, So Young pointed out. Bora nodded grimly. Then you better make it work. As the commander left with her security officers, the conspirators looked at each other with a mixture of excitement and terror. Well, Jinwoo said. Now the real work begins. Veltar's fur had changed again. The solid blue was still there, but now it was shot through with warm amber threads and even a few traces of green. It was not the vibrant display of a healthy Felonian, but it was more colorful than Taemin had ever seen it. Are you ready for this? Taemin asked him. No, Veltar replied honestly. But I am ready to try. For the next 2 days, the station became a hive of activity. Everyone worked around the clock, modifying systems, rerouting power, and installing the strange new components that Veltar's theories required. And slowly, impossibly, it began to work. The contamination readings started to stabilize. The chaotic energy patterns they were generating seemed to confuse the void surge, exactly as Veltar had predicted, but they were not finished yet. The real test would come when the next surge hit, and according to their instruments, that would happen very soon. As Taimin made final adjustments to the last processor, he realized something remarkable had happened. Veltar was no longer just surviving, he was living. He had found something worth fighting for, something that gave his existence meaning, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to save them all. The final void surge hit the station like a tsunami of destructive energy. Every light flickered, every computer screen went dark for a terrifying moment, and the entire structure shook as if a giant hand had grabbed it and tried to tear it apart. Taemin was in the main control room when it happened, watching the energy readings climb to levels that should have been impossible, All around him, his fellow workers held their breath as their modified atmospheric processors struggled against the cosmic storm. Processors 1 and 2 are holding, So Young called out from her station. Processor 3 is fluctuating but stable, Jinwoo added, but Processor 4 was failing. The energy dampening field they had installed was not strong enough to handle the surge. Warning lights flashed red across Taimin's control panel as the contamination levels began to spike again. "We're losing Processor 4, he shouted over the alarm sounds. "If it goes down completely, the contamination will spread to the entire station." Commander Bora's voice crackled over the intercom. "Can you fix it remotely?" "No, someone has to go into the contaminated zone and manually adjust the resonance frequency." "How long would that take?" "Maybe 10 minutes. But the radiation levels in there." Taimin checked his readings and felt his stomach drop. Whoever goes in there isn't coming back out. The control room fell silent except for the constant blaring of alarms. Everyone understood what that meant. They needed someone to sacrifice themselves to save the station. "I will go." The voice came from the doorway. Veltar stood there, his fur showing colors Taimin had never seen before. Deep purple mixed with silver and gold. He looked different somehow, stronger and more alive than he had since the day they met. "Veltar?" "No," Taimin said. "It makes sense," Veltar replied calmly. "I brought this danger here. I should be the one to end it." "That's not how this works." "It is exactly how this works." Veltar walked to the control panel and studied the readings. "Besides, I am already dying, remember? This way, my death will mean something." "You're not dying anymore," Taimin said desperately. "You're getting better. You have a future now." "Do I?" Veltar's fur flickered with sad colors. "I am still alone in the universe, Taimin. Still the last of my people. What kind of future is that?" "The kind where you help other people. The kind where you make a difference." Veltar looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "I cannot ask others to die for my mistakes, and I can't let you throw your life away for mine. Then we have a problem." Commander Bora's voice cut through their argument. "We don't have time for this. That processor is going to fail in the next 5 minutes." Taimin looked at the readings, then at Veltar, then back at the readings. His mind raced through possibilities, calculations, and half-formed ideas. "Wait," he said suddenly. "What if we both go?" "That just means 2 people die instead of 1, Bora said. "No, listen. Veltar understands the void surge energy better than anyone. I understand our equipment better than anyone. If we work together, we might be able to do the job faster and get out before the radiation kills us." "Might is not good enough," Veltar said. "It's better than definitely," Taimin replied. "And it's a lot better than giving up." Veltar stared at him. "You would risk your life for me?" "I would risk my life for everyone on this station, including you. Even though I am not human. Especially because you're not human. You're my friend." The word hung in the air between them. Friend. Such a simple word. But it carried weight that made Veltar's fur ripple with colors of surprise and something that might have been joy. "Friends," Veltar repeated slowly. I had forgotten what that word meant. "So is that a yes?" "That is a yes." They suited up in the station's heaviest radiation gear and made their way to Processor 4. The contaminated zone was a nightmare of twisted metal and sparking electronics. The void surge energy had warped reality itself in some places, creating pockets where the laws of physics seemed to bend and break. Working together, they reached the processor's control unit. Taimin handled the physical repairs while Veltar guided him through the energy manipulation techniques. It was dangerous work. Every second exposed them to radiation that was slowly cooking them from the inside out. "Frequency needs to be higher," Veltar said, his voice strained through the suit's communication system. "I'm pushing it as high as it will go," Taimin replied. "Then we need to synchronize it with the other processors, create a harmonic resonance." "Can you do that?" I can try. Veltar placed his hands on the control panel and closed his eyes. His fur began to glow with colors that Taman had never seen before, brilliant whites and deep blues that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the machinery around them. The processor responded, its energy output shifting and changing until it matched the frequency of the other 3 units. The contamination readings began to drop. It's working, Taman said. But the effort was taking everything Veltar had. His fur was beginning to fade back to gray, and his breathing was labored even through the suit's oxygen supply. Veltar, we need to get out of here. Not yet, need to stabilize the harmonic lock. The radiation will kill us both. Better than letting it kill everyone else. For another agonizing minute, they worked together to fine-tune the system. When the contamination levels finally dropped to safe ranges, they barely had enough strength left to make it back to the main station. Both of them collapsed in the decontamination chamber, their bodies racked with radiation sickness. The medical team worked frantically to save them, using every treatment available. Taman woke up 3 days later to find Veltar sitting beside his bed. The alien looked terrible. His fur was patchy and dull, and he moved like every muscle in his body ached. But he was alive. You look awful, Taman said weakly. You look worse, Veltar replied. They both started laughing, which hurt but felt wonderful at the same time. Did we save everyone? Taman asked. We saved everyone. The void surge energy is completely neutralized. Good. That's good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Veltar spoke again, his voice thoughtful. I came to this station to die. I remember. But I learned something here. I learned that there are different ways to live. Oh? My people believed that life was only meaningful if you had soul threads, connections formed by blood and long history. But humans showed me that connections can be formed by choice, by shared struggle, by simply deciding to care about someone. Taman smiled. So what are you going to do now? I am going to live, Veltar said simply. Not just exist, not just survive. Live. I am going to find other survivors of my people and help them learn what I learned. I am going to teach them about chosen family and stubborn compassion and the human refusal to give up on anyone. That sounds like a good life. It sounds like a meaningful life. 6 months later, Taman received a message from across the galaxy. It was from Veltar, who had found a small community of Felonian survivors and was helping them build a new home on a distant world. The message included an image of Veltar standing with a group of other Felonians. His fur was brilliant with colors Taman had never seen, bright golds and deep purples and shimmering silvers that spoke of joy and purpose and hope. At the bottom of the message was a simple line of text. Thank you for teaching me how to live. Taman smiled and typed back, thank you for teaching me what friendship really means. Outside his window, the 3 moons of Kepler 442b continued their eternal dance across the alien sky. But now when Taman looked at them, he didn't see loneliness. He saw the infinite possibilities that existed when beings chose to care for each other across the vast emptiness of space. And somewhere among the distant stars, a species that had once faced extinction was learning to live again, guided by the stubborn compassion of one human who refused to let a friend die alone.